Flying saucers, visitors from outer space, UFOs. Once the stuff of science fiction, but now a part of our culture, and some insist our universe. And those who believe we aren't alone in their belief. In polls taken over the past 30 years, about half the people surveyed think UFOs are real, not imagined. And an estimated 25 million people now say they have seen a UFO. Sound far-fetched? What's going on here? You be the judge. Tonight, we make a few close encounters of our own with those who say they've seen and even made contact with something out of this world.
Usually they come when I'm sleeping. It's always at night. I felt myself get up out of the bed, stand. I felt a presence in the room, but I didn't see anything. The next thing I remember is just being sucked out the window. And the next thing I remember is being in a ship.
I could feel there was something here. I didn't know. They were all down the side of the bed. I counted, well, 4 of them. Their heads were about this. I mean, all I saw basically were their heads. They were all down the side of the bed. And I realized I was helpless, and my life flashed before my eyes. You know, I can tell the difference between hard-boiled eggs and regular eggs?
Same house, same terrifying story, same family in western Massachusetts. Randy and Glindy are brother and sister.
An egg that's not hard-boiled will not spin. Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that aliens are abducting them?
I do believe that something has definitely happened.
Aliens?
Yeah, aliens or whatever, something of a much greater power than we can even envision.
You know how it sounds?
Oh, I totally know how it sounds. I can't do anything about it. This is what happened to me. And I know it sounds great. I mean, I'm not telling a story to tell a story.
Those sorts of stories, tales of alien abduction, have for years been written off as, to put it mildly, weird. But now along comes a psychiatrist who says he accepts it all. And this is not just any psychiatrist. This is a Pulitzer Prize winner from Harvard.
What I started out with was listening to people, trying to find alternative explanations. What does that matter?
Despite 4 decades in medicine, Dr. John Mack says he has never seen anything like this.
I don't, in my years in psychiatry, have any way to account for these experiences occurring in these people.
I told you what I told you. This is what it is. This is what it is for me.
In the last 3 years, Dr. Mack has interviewed over 90 people who say they've been abducted.
It's very frustrating.
Do you have any doubt now in your own mind that these are real experiences happening in the physical world?
This may not be of our physical world. It may not have originated in our physical world. It may come from another dimension and manifest in our physical world.
Whatever world it is, it clearly frightens people who believed it's happened to them. In many cases, been happening since they were children.
You just know when they're there. There's a blue light that comes in. There's no way that you can deal with that kind of fear.
What conclusions, if any, have you been able to draw in terms of the very basic questions? Who are these beings? Where are they from?
I don't know who they are. There are different kinds of beings described consistently. The most common ones being the little grays with large black eyes, 3.5 to 4 feet tall, who were not familiar to me when I started this work, but have now become familiar in the last few years.
They had eyes and very big heads.
And most abductees think the aliens have come for a reason.
He took me, he put me on a table, and then there was other ones around, and they performed an operation.
I had sperm samples taken from me.
They seem to be intent upon making a hybrid mix of themselves and ourselves. The woman, in this case, was at the end, was lying on a table.
Bud Hopkins is the true believer who introduced Dr. Mack to alien abductions.
Now, this is another woman who made this drawing.
He's been studying this phenomenon for 18 years.
This little boy had been abducted by, floated out of his bedroom.
He's interviewed thousands of people who say they've been kidnapped by aliens.
Well, these are all different people drawn at different times. This was drawn by a registered nurse who has had abduction experiences. This is drawn by a woman in Indianapolis.
He's written 2 books on the subject and set up the Intruders Foundation to spread the word.
Large, round, open mouth. If this is going on in the way that all the evidence suggests, it is the most important event in all of human history.
By profession, you are
By profession, I'm a finger and stuff.
not a psychologist,
Not a psychiatrist.
not a psychiatrist,
Not a psychiatrist.
not an astrophysicist.
Not an astrophysicist.
Which is where Dr. Mack, his credentials, and his new book come in. He's become the champion of the abductee cause.
To be taken against your will, paralyzed out of your home or out of your car by strange beings through a wall up into some craft and subjected to intrusive procedures is by itself traumatic. It's also traumatic in the sense that the people cannot talk with other people about it because they will be ridiculed.
That's one of the worst parts, is the loneliness, feeling like nobody else understands.
People saying, well, I'm just not into this stuff. We're not into the UFO stuff, but we're not into it either. We just had this thing happen, and we need to talk about it.
They compare their bizarre experiences in meetings Dr. Mack holds once a month.
I don't know if there's such a thing as collective hallucinations. I don't think there is.
He brought a group together for us.
I know that the few times when I get past that terror, I find myself in the presence of another being who wants to communicate. You know, I've experienced a tremendous sense of love for them.
So what to make of all this? The abductees are fond of saying, look, either I'm lying, or I'm crazy, or I'm right. But other researchers say it's not that simple.
Just because you experience a humanoid doesn't mean that that was what was experienced.
I don't know what they are. I don't know whether they're alien or whatever. They're just some beings, alive creatures that are coming in and doing things.
Something happened. Yeah. What the heck was it?
There's a part of you that still goes, God, this is just nuts. This is crazy. It'd be nice to deny this, you know. And they think, well, it's nice to have someone at Harvard University saying, yes, I believe these people.
Once a skeptic, Harvard psychiatrist John Mack says he no longer has doubt.
I can hear their thoughts.
The stories of alien abductions are real.
Why don't they ask me to go with them?
The people that I work with are talking with great intensity of feeling, and they are talking about experiences of great importance to them, which don't fit into the reality that we know.
He took me to a spaceship.
I was on a table and I was looking up at these taller creatures.
They were like touching my body in different places.
They're reporting in great detail.
There's this paralysis.
The same experiences that other people are reporting.
And you can't do anything.
And you can't move.
That's not the way any kind of psychiatric condition behaves. That's not the way dreams behave. The only thing that behaves like that is real experience.
The question is, experience of what?
Well, first of all, it's real to the person. That's important to realize.
Michael Persinger, a neuropsychologist at Ottawa's Laurentian University, agrees the experience is real. In fact, he can duplicate much of it in the lab.
At any point in time you experience anything different or unusual, please go ahead and report it.
Every component of abduction-type experiences can be reproduced by stimulating certain parts of the brain.
Another of Persinger's experiments here produced this.
Feels like I'm alive here, but there's nothing I could do. It feels like I'm paralyzed.
See images of other people, I'm not really sure who they are.
Are they gone? Persinger says that this kind of brain activity is something that many people occasionally experience. Nothing alien about it.
Individuals often report remarkably similar visitations of what were considered spiritual creatures. They always were described the same way. They feel a sense of a presence, usually late at night, between about 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning. The sense of presence is often apprehensive, sometimes fearful, and very often after those experiences, they feel like something significant has happened to them.
But those are vague senses of a presence. So this is not vague. It's a very clearly articulated abduction experience in which the beings appear, the beings are described, they're actually taken into an enclosure, They describe in detail the intrusive procedures that are done to their bodies. It appears like something that's really occurred in their experience.
Why would they all come up with the same explanation?
The minute someone says, well, it's obvious you were abducted, then they start reading about abduction phenomena.
The first thing that began to make it click was, I think, 1987, when Communion, Willie Strieber's book, came out.
Rusty Hudson says he is an unwilling veteran of 10 alien abductions.
A girlfriend of mine was visiting me and pulled out the New York Times book review, and there's this big full-page ad. She says, "Oh, look, Russ, here's these things you've been drawing all over your notebooks."
Rusty's most disturbing experience in 1983 still haunts him today.
If I close my eyes, I can just always visualize these eyes. These big, black, liquidy, staring eyes.
At the time, he only remembered a few images, and even those came in what he calls flashbacks.
What I did piece together was through through a hypnosis session that I had many years later.
Like most abductees, Rusty covered his clear memory of the experience through a technique called hypnotic regression.
How many times have you been hypnotized?
I've been hypnotized about 5 or 6 times.
It's like the face is emerging out of this light.
Rusty agreed to listen with us to a tape recording of his first sessions.
It's like all I can see out of the white is the two black eyes.
And this part is what I remembered before hypnosis.
I don't know if this is real.
We'll sort it out later. Just tell what it feels like.
What hypnosis does is it helps people to remember the disturbing parts of it, to fill in the details, really, that they could not consciously recall.
I see something. It's like rotating towards me.
The next thing that I remembered clearly was this being that I had seen and a couple others sort of hovering around me, doing things.
Where the matter is of absolutely vital emotional importance, core importance to the person, memory is quite accurate.
These memories become a very compellingly believed reality, but not necessarily accurate.
Daniel Brown, a Harvard colleague of Dr. Max, is an authority on hypnosis. He says in this case, hypnosis proves absolutely nothing.
Once the person is hypnotized and gets access to both memory and fantasy,
I look again and it's standing there.
They will report a mixture of memory and fantasy, but to believe all of that to be the memory.
I remember in the hypnosis session just saying, this can't be happening. Beings aren't supposed to show up in rooms. You're not supposed to end up on a table somewhere. But unfortunately, that's what happened.
And moreover, they will usually report that with very great confidence and conviction.
You have no doubt.
I have no doubt that something really bizarre happened to me.
I think the danger is that it's used a great deal, that it is helping people to believe things that it's not clear really happened.
When you get some sort of correlation that, you know, as you're saying, like you and I, oh, you saw that too.
For Rusty and other abductees, sharing their stories strengthens their convictions even more.
That's what persuaded me.
The risk is, if everything is based upon the beliefs of a single man or woman or guru, the minute that man or woman or guru is discredited, then the belief system collapses.
You've got an awful lot of people who have been very disturbed by something, who now look at you and say, you know, it's legitimate. And what if you're wrong?
Well, then we'll certainly learn something interesting anyway, right?
I look again and it's standing there, and it can't be standing there. I mean, how could it be standing there?
When you change a person's memory, you're changing who they are. You're changing their identity. You're changing their sense of self.
So if you were to find out tomorrow that these beings were never coming back, ever, the rest of your life, would you miss them?
Probably I would. In a strange way. In a strange way, I would.
On July 4th, 1947, something crashed in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico.
What were you all thinking?
We were seeing something that's unbelievable.
It's become the granddaddy of all UFO mysteries.
I got a call from the air base. The mortuary officer wanted to know if we had some 3'6" or 4' baby caskets that were hermetically sealed.
No question about it, something did happen here. What was it?
Colonel Blanchard told me that he wanted a press release prepared telling that we had in our possession a flying saucer.
Wow, what a story. Until...
The next morning I picked up the morning newspaper, and the commanding general of the 8th Air Force had stated we were wrong. That was not a flying saucer. That was a weather balloon.
Who the hell would ever believe that we captured a flying saucer?
This man claims he was with Army intelligence, and tonight on 48 Hours, he's going public for the first time.
I'm somewhat leery about going on because I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want that.
To protect his privacy, he doesn't want his face shown or to be identified by name.
We didn't know whether it was an airplane crash. We could see kind of a glow, you know, fading glow. Yeah, just this one area, just like a beam, but it was glowing. And we got to the site approximately right about down there. We saw the craft right in there, almost at a 45-degree angle, embedded in this
right into the side.
Yeah, in the side, say. And then we saw this opening, about like that, see. And we could make out some figures.
Inside?
No, outside. One was out, one was half out, with the legs, one half of his body was just out, and the other was inside.
Back at Roswell, Glenn Dennis, a mortician at the time, says he got several strange calls from a man at the airbase.
The mortuary officer called back in about another 30 minutes and wanted to know what embalming fluid consisted. What would it do to tissue? What would it do to blood? What would it do to, and what was the components and how it would change stomach contents and all that.
And at the base, then Lieutenant Walter Hout handled the press.
That was the original press release that put out. The phones were ringing off the hook. Everybody wanting to know all about the flying saucer that we had in our possession.
Hout was there when the military brass did the about face.
And this is the newspaper the next day. We said we had a flying saucer, and General Ramey said that he emptied our saucer,
claiming it was a weather balloon.
That is a picture of the weather balloon. Ramey's chief of staff has stated that the material coming from Roswell was taken out of the room, and a weather balloon brought in its stead.
If it was only a weather balloon, why did mortician Glenn Dennis claim he was threatened?
I took an airman out to the infirmary. There was some wreckage, looked like some pieces of hot stainless steel. On the outer edge of that, in about 4 inches, there was some hieroglyphics, some strange markings. I noticed that. And there was a big, tall, 6'3" or 4" red-headed captain. And he came up to me and he said, "Mister, don't go in Roswell, and don't say there's been a crash or anything, because nothing's happened out here." I said, "Look, mister, I'm a civilian, and you can't do a damn thing to me, and you can go to hell." And that's when he said, "Mister, somebody will be digging your bones out of the sand."
And why would Frankie Rowe claim she was threatened by an MP after she touched a piece of debris at a local firehouse?
It looked like a watered-up piece of aluminum foil, but when it hit the table, it spread like water.
She was only 12 at the time.
And he said, "I want you to understand, you weren't there. You didn't see anything." And I didn't really understand what he meant, and so I insisted I was there. And I did see it, and he kept saying, "No, you didn't." And he said, "Can't you get this through your head? You never saw anything." He said, "You know, this is a big desert out here. We can take you all out here." He said, "We can just do away with every one of you, and nobody will ever find your bodies."
There was plenty of paranoia even before the flying saucer incident. The atomic bomb strike force was located here. To the north, highly classified atomic research was underway. To the west, there were super-secret tests of rockets and missiles. So it was no wonder that the locals were always on the lookout for intruders.
That's as close to the type of the craft it was.
Now, you know, various books, the latest book out here, The Truth About UFO Crash at Roswell, and they got some drawing. Now, you're talking about the bodies, you said.
See, the small nose. Eyes like this.
About how tall?
About 5'3", 5'4", somewhere as tall as that thing. Like that.
Bald?
Yeah.
No hair?
No hair.
Did these people look like they were from another planet? Did they look like normal?
They didn't look
human
like
beings?
they didn't look like they came from Texas, Phil. I'll tell you that. No way. Yeah, they look different.
We're at Hangar 84, which according to the various first-hand witnesses, eyewitnesses, where they stored the bodies.
After investigating for their new book, Kevin Randall and Don Schmidt are convinced it was a military cover-up.
What was in here, allegedly?
A crate, a large crate in the center of the hangar, one light shining down on it, MPs around the perimeter inside the hangar, MPs around the perimeter outside the hangar. This one huge crate that allegedly held the body.
The question is today, why after 47 years does the cover-up continue?
That's exactly what Congressman Stephen Schiff of New Mexico wants to know.
I think the Department of Defense is acting like there's a cover-up, even if in fact there is no cover-up.
Schiff asked the Pentagon about Roswell. Says he got the runaround.
I'm honestly surprised that they weren't upfront with me, at least to that extent, and said, if we don't have the files, this is why not.
Now he's asking government investigators to help him track down the Roswell files.
My first explanation, speaking personally now, would not be towards what we call a UFO, an extraterrestrial visit. If this is not a weather balloon, my next guess would be some type of military experiment, possibly originating from nearby White Sands missile range that went awry at that time.
48 Hours asked the Air Force to provide a spokesman to appear on camera, but officials refused. All we got from the Pentagon was this written statement, which says in part, their search of records is not yet complete, but nothing has been found to date to contradict the 1947 Air Force statement that the Roswell incident was a balloon.
Whatever happened that night in the desert, Glenn Dennis and Walter Hout have turned their brush with mystery into celebrity.
We've got videotapes, we've got books, we've got hats, magnets, shoulder patches.
We now have a UFO museum.
There's going to come a time when it'll all be brought out.
But they may come out and say, hey, you've looked at it again, and it's a weather balloon. Just as we reported back in 47.
If they say it's a weather balloon, fine, let them think that.
But this man says he knows better.
Yes. And several others know better.
Can you get me a nurse in here?
This is going to be not ICU, but telemetry. This is not a bad break. Where was the thing located?
By day, Stephen Greer is an emergency room physician in North Carolina.
We'll check on you a little later.
By night...
Oh, look. Yeah, there it is. It sure is.
He is on mountaintops, this time near the small town of Metepec in Mexico.
Oh, God, this is the real McCoy.
Dr. Greer is the founder of a group looking for extraterrestrials.
Where'd it go? There it is.
We have made the assessment that these are real, these so-called UFOs are real. Why don't we try to see if we can get their attention and, if possible, interact with them in an open way.
Unlike most UFO groups, this one does more than just study sightings. It wants diplomatic relations with extraterrestrials.
They're around tonight, friends. It's neat. Great.
Do you think, Dr. Greer, that these intelligent beings know that you might be trying to make contact?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. These are put out to mark an area that we determined in advance would be a good place to have a craft land or set down.
What other gadgets do you have with you?
We have a 35 millimeter. We have a Canon L1 Pro camcorder, high 8. We've got an electric field meter, picks up microwave. We have high-powered lights, microcassette dictation, compasses, radio equipment. Let me see this one. We have beeping tones that are tones that have been recorded in proximity of these craft when they've been in an area, and they're sort of a beep, 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 beep. Those tones we're sending out like a beacon into space. Frequently they'll come down over this pass and originate, and they come down this ridge line.
When Dr. Greer and his group look for locations to set up camp, They don't just look for the best view of the sky.
The problem with this area, there's not a good landing site. It'd be a good place to have a meeting if one of these things lands and pull them back in here.
Like Stephen Greer, the other members of the group have day jobs. Sherry Adamiak works in a law firm in Denver. Wayne Peterson is an engineer in Phoenix. And Marty Keller is a writer in Minneapolis.
You get a 150-foot diameter disc in this field.
If this did happen, would you go aboard if they invited? Without any hesitations at all? Any hesitation in your heart at all?
That's right.
You go.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand, I'm serious enough about this. I have transferred every asset I have into my wife's name. I own nothing.
Possibility existed. You may never be heard from again.
That's a possibility. I think it's remote.
But just in case.
Just give your name and your name and the name of someone to contact, the phone number into this. This will be a permanent record.
My name is Wayne Peterson, and contact Grace Peters.
Sherry Adamack, boarding party member number 2, communicator number 2.
Marty Keller, boarding party member number 3, documenter number 2.
Stephen Greer, I'm the RMIT team leader. Please contact Emily Greer.
They intend to leave the recordings behind for the rest of us.
Somebody will find them, they'll play them back, and they'll see what happened. Oh, look. That may be it. That's got no aviation lights on it. I don't know why it's lit up like that if it's a normal airplane. Again, it was closer over here. It was silent. Has no aviation lights on it.
And what does that tell you?
That tells me it's a UFO. It went down below. I can't see it now. There it is. Here it is. Put your strobe on. There's something there. Oh. Wow. I hit it with light and it reflected off something. I mean, I hate to sound ridiculous, but I think there's a craft recon behind that bridge. It's not far. Look how close it is. Does someone want to go with me, Wayne? Oh.
This close encounter turns out to be rather terrestrial.
Do you hear that?
Partygoers celebrating a local holiday.
I heard voices. And I heard someone kind of cough. Yeah, it's some, see, look, there's a figure. They're laughing. With their people. That's all we need to know.
But the team is not to be deterred.
God, what is this? I think this may be the real thing.
Over the next 6 nights, they have more than 7 sightings.
Yeah, there it is. It sure is. Look at the size of that.
Look at that.
It's moving towards the gap.
And once claimed to have even communicated with UFO.
Oh.
Oh, what was that?
It interacted beautifully, though, in terms of the off and on. I mean, that was incredibly good CE5. In no way could a conventional craft moving away be able to signal back and forth like that with the lights on and off.
We brought our footage of the sightings to a group of scientists who are experts at analyzing film and videotape.
I haven't seen anything that would indicate to me that these are extraterrestrial beings.
Dr. Roger McCarthy and Bob Frankel were not impressed.
There's been no movement in these pictures.
That would seem unusual.
Unusual or
unlike any aircraft that we've used.
Not out of the realm of aircraft power. You're exactly right.
Even when they enhanced our images.
What we've done thus far is to take the frames of the video that you provided us, and we've digitized them.
You look at the shape here, and the relative geometric location wouldn't be inconsistent with an aircraft that had a nose, fuselage, top, wingtip, and tail.
Do you believe there's extraterrestrial life out there?
There is, I think, no question that there is extraterrestrial life elsewhere in the universe. That they would come here. That they would come here with running lights. And that they would come here with running lights that I can't tell from the other lights that I have running around in the world. I find that highly improbable.
Metapec, it turns out, is only 52 miles from the busy Mexico City airport.
If a spacecraft is landing or coming close,
which may explain why it's a great place to look for lights in the sky.
We have a plan for going on board.
Do I believe that they're spaceships from elsewhere? I would say, what is the evidence? Where is the physical evidence? And if there's no physical evidence, no page stolen from the captain's log, no scraping of alien metals that our metallurgists can look at, no photography done by several independent people of things that could only be extraterrestrial spacecraft, if there's nothing like that, then I say anecdotal stories don't count.
Astronomer Carl Sagan, like many prominent scientists, may not believe we are being visited by aliens.
But at the same time, the stuff of life is absolutely everywhere. Comets, the outer solar system, the cold, dark, near vacuum between the stars are all loaded with complex organic molecules, the very sort that you would want to have for the origin of life. We see forming planetary systems everywhere. We know that the evolutionary process is nothing unique to the Earth. It really looks as if life ought to be everywhere.
And if ET exists, Sagan is betting it will call before visiting. This 84-foot radio dish in Massachusetts is a kind of extraterrestrial answering machine. It searches for radio waves coming from space. The project is funded by Sagan's Planetary Society.
The whole galaxy is turning like a big pinwheel.
And run by Harvard physicist Paul Horowitz.
How many frequencies are you listening to right now? Right now, as we speak.
This radio system is 128 times 64,000 individual channels. That's about 8 million, a little over 8 million. And these are 8 million radio channels simultaneously observed. It's like having 8 million radios on your desk, each one tuned to an adjacent radio frequency.
Making sense of all those radio waves would require superhuman powers. So Horowitz built a supercomputer.
We had the boards fabricated. We actually soldered them all ourselves. All those little solder joints, there's about 500,000 of them.
It listens to all those radio waves and records the ones that stand out and can't be readily explained.
Here's a reasonably strong one at 19.72. This is too strong ever to be a random signal.
So if ET calls, that's what it looks like.
Well, maybe they'll call some other way. Any experiment you do here, you're making some assumptions. We're assuming, first of all, that they exist, that they're using radio signals at the frequencies that we like to receive, and of course, they were pointed in the right direction. Any of those things, all of those could be wrong.
Kind of a long shot.
But after 9 years and more than 10 million signals, that's 10 million, Horowitz says he has found something. 37 signals that can't be explained.
And these little bubbles and dots are the positions of the 37 signals that survived all our cuts.
Could they be?
Yes, they could.
Extraterrestrials?
They could.
In his office at Harvard University, Horowitz has kept a computer record
Here it is.
of his most mysterious discovery.
This is what came in on the 10th of September, 1988. And here it is, an enormous spike, which was 750 times noise.
750 times noise. That's 750 times stronger than this noise. The normal hissing sounds of the universe.
If you converted a radio signal into audio, it would just sound like a tone. It would sound like a flute.
It is not enough for the scientists to hear the signals only once. They have to be heard repeatedly and from the same place in the sky. And that's the problem with the 37 signals that aroused so much interest here. They were never heard again.
None of the cases were reproducible. That is, there's that source in the sky that has just sent us a tantalizing signal. Let's look at that place in the sky some more. Go back to it minutes later. Go back to it weeks later, months later, years later.
You've never gotten
Never get anything from it. But, I mean, it's clear if we don't search, we will not find.
But you know, there's no doubt in your mind, although you can't prove it, there's somebody up there.
Listen, read my lips. Life in the universe is guaranteed. Life in our galaxy
life?
is guaranteed. Let's talk about intelligent life. Guaranteed in the universe as a whole.
While Sagan and Horowitz keep looking, ever hopefully, others hit differently. John Ball is a radio astronomer at MIT.
Do you believe that there's life out there? Intelligent life?
Yes.
He has what amounts to an interstellar inferiority complex.
They might find us interesting to study in the same way that some of our scientists spend their lifetimes studying primitive Earth life.
He believes someone is probably out there, but whatever it is, it's much too advanced to care about us.
They probably would not try to talk to us.
Why not?
Because for the same reason that we don't try to talk to ants or bugs.
Well, so Paul Horowitz is just down the street here, a couple miles away, you know, with his ear cocked to the universe, waiting to hear any sign, anything at all. Is he wasting his time?
It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. But you need to know that it's a needle you're looking for, as opposed to a thimble.
It also helps to know where the haystack is.
Yeah.
It is respectable to talk about extraterrestrials.
Talking about their existence isn't enough for Sagan. He wants proof.
Are we alone? Are we who have evolved on this one lonely planet in this tiny sliver of time and immensity of ages? Are we the only ones? And if we're not, what are those other guys like? It seems to me it would be the most extraordinary discovery in the history of the world.
Nothing much exciting happens
Dispatch 3A.
in this resort town on Lake Michigan.
I have a 92-year-old male with a hip fracture.
Nothing exciting, that is.
911.
Until the night they came.
Is there any Air Force airplanes or helicopters flying around in Allegan or Ottawa County tonight?
The lights were moving in a circular motion.
What is that?
There was an unusual mass. Looked about the size of a small thunderstorm.
And it started coming towards us. And I was screaming at him not to turn the car on.
911. You guys busy? A little bit. They're out there. Taking airplanes.
Something definitely happened in this Holland, Michigan cornfield on the night of March 8th. That something was a UFO that flew directly overhead. A UFO, that is a flying object that has yet to be identified. Whatever it turns out to be, one thing's for certain. Life in this small town will never be quite the same.
We were in bed, me and Daryl. The kids were getting ready for bed.
Holly and Daryl Graves had a close encounter when their son saw something odd out their living room window.
He just started yelling, "Come here, come here, come look at these lights."
Now, how did you know it was something unusual?
Well, I knew they weren't airplanes, and a lot of people are saying that planets or stars or something. I knew it wasn't that. They were almost in formation.
And I saw the bottom. It was metal. It had lights on it. It was turning in a clockwise circle.
911.
While Daryl continued to watch the object, Holly made a phone call.
We were just wondering, have you heard anything about these lights that are flickering up here?
Not a thing.
They're right there in the sky. It's just something we've never seen before.
Okay, we'll have somebody check it out.
All right.
Thanks.
I received a 911 dispatch call.
Officer Jeff Veldhouse was 5 minutes away.
When I got there, I made contact with a person standing in his front yard, and he had some binoculars in his hand and was looking at some lights in the sky.
I know what he's looking at. He's looking at this plane. He says, "No, not that airplane. It's right behind the airplane." And he seen him.
The lights were moving in a circular motion rather than a strobing or a flashing light that I was used to seeing on aircraft in this area. Once I got in the car and started to drive and attempt to relocate the lights in the sky, I lost sight of them.
But the things the officer lost sight of may actually have been captured on radar.
The whole episode was about 20 minutes long.
Leo Grenier of the National Weather Service.
Well, our man on duty was called by the Ottawa County Sheriff and asked to look at the radar.
You getting anything weird down in the southern Ottawa County area? Well, I'm looking at it in the vertical now, and I'm not really. Let's see, wait a minute, there's something right there. Oh, it moves. Let's see. Yeah, there's something big down there. Wait a minute, that's really strange.
These masses were moving in short spurts, not at all like an aircraft, which is generally going to be flying in a straight line.
Well, oh my God, what is that? Well, there's three. They're separated by about, looks like about 5,000 feet in height.
But the radar in the witness witnesses may not have been seeing the same thing.
One of the discrepancies is the nearly 25-mile difference between the position of or location of our radar echoes and the location of the people near Holland, Michigan.
These are huge returns. I've never seen anything like this.
We're still kind of saying to ourselves, what was it? You know, what was it? But we're very glad it happened to us, and I would like it to come back.
She may just get her wish. The Michigan sightings are still going on.
So, are we alone? More than 50 years ago, thousands of Americans thought they had the answer when Orson Welles declared Martians had landed in his famous radio broadcast, The War of the Worlds. Now as then, stars continue to captivate us. And tonight, we still look to the heavens. Some of us with certainty, some with skepticism, but all of us with wonder. I'm Dan Rather, and that's 48 Hours.